Shalom, this is Daniel Stern from Netivyah. Today is January 9th. I'm here in our building in downtown Jerusalem, as I usually am, and I'm glad to see you all. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us, and especially for engaging, for the comments, for the likes, and I always want more of that. I want more of your comments, whether it's compliments or negative comments, whether it's corrections or ideas, questions. Give me your ideas and your opinions. And now, today we're going to talk a little bit about South Lebanon, what's been going on over the last few days, over the last few weeks. As you probably are aware, a 60-day truce went into effect about a month and a half ago, and during that time, a few forces, a few agents were supposed to do certain things. Within those 60 days, the Israeli army was supposed to withdraw south back into Israel. The Hezbollah was supposed to go north of the Litani River. The UNIFIL and the Lebanese army were supposed to take over from Israel the different points that Israel was currently in order to stop Hezbollah from coming back and taking over those positions. So, and of course there was supposed to be a truce. As it turned out, there was still some things that were needed to be done by the Israeli army, whether it's destruction of warehouses and arms supplies, whether it's stopping Hezbollah from attempting to rearm, and other things, and destroying infrastructure, terrorist infrastructure. So that's been happening. And in the meantime, also Israel has been withdrawing from certain parts. Last I heard from eastern Lebanon, there was a withdrawal, and so on and so forth. The Lebanese army has not yet spread out and taken over the positions as it needs to. UNIFIL has been there and is still there, but frankly has not done much. Although, to their credit, it seems that in the last month they've been stepping up their efforts in attempting to find terrorist infrastructure, but we'll talk about them in a moment. And Hezbollah, as mentioned, is attempting to rearm itself, which Israel, when it can, and is stopping by usually bombing the convoy or whatnot, but as a force seems to be trying to be subtle and not show their strengths in South Lebanon at the moment. They're trying to be subtle. Not only that, but there seems to be some agreement between the Lebanese army and Hezbollah that the Hezbollah will allow the Lebanese army to find, quote unquote, certain arms warehouses that are insignificant to them, that are nearly empty, in order to give credit to the idea that the Lebanese army are doing their job, and allow Hezbollah to keep the more important ones that are actually full of missiles. Recent estimate is that Hezbollah still has about 20% of their missile capacity, which they had before, which in numbers means about 25,000 missiles. Now, one recent report is in an area called Naqoura. It's a village in South Lebanon on the western side next to the coast, and it is an interesting area because the main base of UNIFIL, United Force Interim Forces in Lebanon, is there. The main base of UNIFIL is in Naqoura. And one would think that as a result, that would be a relatively pacified, sterile, peaceful place. But that's not the case. Just as the 60-day ceasefire truce went into effect, Israeli forces occupied Naqoura because they knew that there's a lot of work that needed to be done there. And indeed, the infrastructure, the terrorist infrastructure that is there, is overwhelmingly unbelievable. Every house is packed with missiles. There are rocket launchers and missiles tied to trees and branches inside their citrus groves in such a way that they would not be seen when driving by or when flying above, but you actually physically have to be in the grove in order to see the rocket launchers that are aimed at the city of Nahariya and the surrounding areas, and the city of Accra and the surrounding areas. And in this base, which is almost is their forward base for the invasion of the Galilee, the Western Galilee, in this base, plans and, in fact, I'm going back to those rockets that are aimed at Nahariya and Akko inside citrus groves. Two more points of interest. One is that they are less than 100 yards from the main United Nations base. And two, they have the coordinates in Israel of where they're supposed to hit. I mean, it's totally like how it's impossible that UNIFIL did not know about this. It's less than 100 yards from their base, full of missiles. So I'm very glad that the paratroopers brigade went in there and are clearing it out. And I'm very disappointed, although I shouldn't be because we've come to expect it, that the United Nations interim force in Lebanon is complicit with Hezbollah. But you know what? That's not a surprise, because just the other day, as I already mentioned months ago, more proof that Hamas and UNRWA, the United Nations refugee agency, for Gaza, of course, not the real one, but the one that is only for Gaza, for Palestinian refugees, and basically does nothing but keep them around as a weapon against Israel, are in cahoots and work together and communicate strongly with each other, the Hamas leadership and the United Nations agency. Just a couple days ago, more proof of that came out, which is more reason that they should be canceled, removed, and I'm very glad that in a few days a new Israeli law will go into effect, which will prohibit the communication and cooperation with that horrible agency within the boundaries of the land of Israel. Obviously, it should be expanded to not cooperating with them anywhere, because unfortunately they are a terrible organization, and most of their members have strong associations with Hamas if they're not members of Hamas itself and or the military wing of Hamas. So it's just another example. But going back to Lebanon, so we are very glad that the army is up there doing its job. Thankfully, there have been very few casualties in the north in Lebanon in the last few weeks. Unfortunately, there are quite a few casualties in the Gaza Strip. As always, pray for the soldiers, pray for their protection, pray for the families of the fallen, pray for the injured and their families, and don't forget to pray for the hostages and their families, and for wisdom for the leadership. The ceasefire truce in Lebanon is supposed to continue till a few days after Donald Trump takes office, and then of course we will see how the political situation in the Middle East develops. There's a lot of, Donald Trump is threatening Hamas to release the hostages, and people are talking about Israel waiting for Donald Trump before attacking Iran. So there's a lot of things in the works, and we'll have to wait and see what happens once Donald is in office. But for now, that's all I really wanted to say about Lebanon, just to give you a little update on the 60-day truce, which is still holding, but isn't performing what it was supposed to do. It wasn't just meant to be, we're all putting down our weapons for 60 days, but rather different agents, the Lebanese army, UNIFIL, were supposed to do something, and unfortunately they're not. And on a slight related note, I just saw yesterday that President Biden approved a $100 million aid to the Lebanese army, which was diverted mostly from Egypt and some of it from Israel, about $7 million from Israel and $93 million from Egypt, in order to bolster the Lebanese army. which is great, but it just means they can rearm the terrorists, because unfortunately Hezbollah was, and hopefully won't be in the future, so deeply rooted into Lebanon that the army and UNIFIL never did anything to oppose them. So that's it for now, and God bless you all. Don't forget to subscribe, like, click the bell, all that kind of stuff, and send me comments and questions. Shalom.